All right, we're back on the program, folks. Coming up next Saturday night, the UFC is back on pay-per-view with a card from Los Angeles, California. Highly regarded Holly Holm joining us on the line right now, getting set for her UFC debut in the co-feature, no less, as she will be meeting Raquel Pennington. Holly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Just getting these last couple hard training days in, and then just start tapering down and kind of just making sure I'm on weight.
You know, a lot of fighters, when it's their UFC debut, they're kind of coming in. It's maybe an undercard fight. They get to sense what it's like to be part of a UFC fight week and watch how all the promotion goes down. You're really being thrust right into the spotlight. You come in with a lot of notoriety. You're here second from the top, right underneath the bantamweight title fight. Is it all kind of a little surreal for you as you're part of these conference calls? You are a big part of the promotion for this card in your UFC debut.
Absolutely. I feel thrown in there, but I guess if you're going to do it, let's just, do it all out. I think just throw me in there, and what I want to do is just really make the most of the opportunity. I don't want the opportunity to pass me by and not have made the most of it. So it's a lot, but I guess I've been saying I would rather be on this end of it than on the end where nobody believed in me or thought I could do anything. So I'll take it.
At the same time as for anyone that's making their debut in the UFC, this is a big deal. You were doing 4,000, 5,000 and more people as a headliner consistently in New Mexico as a boxer. You headlined shows all over the world. You've won multiple titles. So in a different way, you're probably more prepared than anybody would be in this situation, right?
I do feel like the ring experience I've had in my boxing career has helped me be prepared for this, but this is still going to be new. This is different than what I have had before. But I do feel like I am somewhat prepared more than just what my MMA record shows because of my boxing background. And I've had to face a lot of, big opponents when I've been the underdog, and one of my biggest mental fights I think I had was coming back from being knocked out, and I went to rematch a girl, and she was huge. We fought at a heavier weight.
At welterweight, right?
I had to really get in there and do it. What's that?
Did you fight at welterweight? You fought her at welterweight in boxing?
At 147, yeah. And I've had some fights as heavy as 154. So,
crazy.
I've kind of felt like I've had to face a little bit of adversity, I guess, in the boxing world. So,
what was the ultimate deciding factor for you, Holly, to go all in with mixed martial arts? Was it simply looking for that newer challenge in your career? What was ultimately the decision for you to move over from boxing, where there was a lot of money to be made if you're Holly Holm? You have that background, and this certainly presented a challenge, and now here you are, just a week away from your UFC debut.
When I was all my years of boxing, I've been boxing out of first a kickboxing gym, and then we combined with Craig Jackson and became an MMA gym. And I have trained under that same training since I started, sparring at 17. So I've been around it a long time, and I've always had a love for the actual kickboxing. All of my amateur fights were kickboxing fights. I never had an amateur boxing fight. My first boxing fight was my first pro fight. And so I feel like I always kind of had that background and that love for kickboxing, and just being around the MMA world and just kind of, in practice, being able to go a little bit with my teammates to help, some of the girls on the team prepare for their fight. It really was as simple as this. They would say, hey, can you, go with Julie for a while? She's going to be fighting this taller kickboxer. And every now and then, if you want to, try to take her down. And I thought, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, but yeah, let's do it. So I'd get in there and kickbox and do whatever I thought I could do for a takedown just to give her the right feel. And through that, I just really thought, man, this is so fun. I just really want to dive into this. So that's really how it started.
When so far, when people have been talking to you in the weeks leading up to it, how much of the conversation, even though you're just making your debut, how much of it is about the champ and fighting the champ and facing Ronda and all that? How much has that been, the topic that people want to ask you about?
it's been a big topic, and I feel like it's obviously something people are looking at. I don't think they would put, both of our fights back to back as a co-main and main event if they weren't trying to create some kind of, talk around it being a potential fight in the future. But I feel like I actually answered more Ronda Rousey questions when I first signed with the UFC. And with this fight, being that I do have Raquel Pennington ahead of me, a lot of them are asking me mostly about her. There are a few questions, about the Ronda Rousey fight, but I think now that I actually have the contract with, Raquel Pennington, it's been there, but it hasn't been overdone or anything, or I'm just trying to stay focused on this fight in front of me.
I also want to ask you, Holly, just about the relationship with Mike Winklejohn. Has he essentially been working with you since that age of 17? And just talk to us a bit about how instrumental he has been, because he is just looks at you as one of his prized pupils. Whenever we hear him in interviews, very high on one Holly Holm, and I think he's as excited as anyone to see Holly Holm in the UFC next weekend.
When it really comes down to it, he is probably the number one person that I want to make proud. He has done everything in his power to prepare me, and it's just up to me to perform. And I have never had a different kind of coach. It has been him from the beginning. And I think that just, how lucky and blessed was I to walk into his gym when I first started doing this. I just walked in doing an aerobics class, and it just happened to be Winklejohn's kickboxing, the best stand-up coach in the world. I didn't have to go look for a great coach. And I remember even in boxing, I think one of my most upset moments I've ever had with the media was after a fight. Somebody asked me, hey, I was getting ready to fight another local girl, and she had trained out at Big Bear with the Mayweathers, and, I was training with Mr. Winklejohn, and after the fight, I had dominated the fight, and they were asking me, they said, so have you ever thought about getting a real boxing coach?
Wow.
I kind of lost my mind. Because obviously, I think he did he's the best in the world. And boxing, kickboxing, he just has that ability, number one, to help you believe in yourself. I think some of the biggest things he's taught me is how to train hard. And he believes in me, which gives me strength to believe in myself. And he's just got the mastermind for the sport, so I could go on all day about him for sure.
Well, the relationship between a fighter and a coach is one of the most unique ones in all of sport. And I don't think people realize that, but you can sure hear it when you talk about it. I do have a question about Raquel Pennington and about you have 7 MMA fights. You've finished 6 of those opponents. Did you learn more in the fight that went the distance? And when you face Raquel, what would you really prefer to see? It just go your way and make a big statement, or get some real minutes like you did in that decision win?
I do want real minutes. I look at my fights and I see, little things that I've learned. My very first MMA fight, I threw a lazy leg kick and she caught it, and we just landed up on the ground, and she was full mount on me, and I thought, how in the world did I get here? And
this wasn't the plan.
Right away. Yeah, I wound up getting up right away, but guess what? As much as I hated it, I finished her early, so it was fine, but I'm glad that happened in an actual fight, because it's different than in practice. And yes, the fight that I went the actual distance, there was a lot of little bit of clinch. That opponent I had, she was kind of reaching for chokes and things like that, which I think is kind of similar to some of the things that Raquel does. Not really. Raquel's on a whole different level, but I am glad that I had to do 3 rounds there. And really, I had an early stoppage in my last fight, but it was a 5-round fight, so I actually went into the 5th round, and I'm glad that I had that time. It just gives as much as you want it to end early. Sometimes when it does go a little longer, I'm thankful for the time and the experience that I've gained out of it. So, yeah, I always want the experience, but if I had to choose, I would still take the finish as soon as possible.
Last thing, Holly, before we let you go, obviously it's just a very big story this week in regards to the UFC's press conference this week regarding their way to combat performance-enhancing drugs in the sport. Just getting into the mind of a fighter, I mean, your immediate reaction to this, it's being taken as a giant step forward that the UFC has taken. I mean, is this something that, as a fighter, just your own reaction to it all?
I think it's great. I've been a firm believer in being a natural athlete. I've never, I think my husband has to try and force me to even take protein shakes, and I'm really bad about just kind of doing a lot of that. I think, well, I'll just get my nutrients from food. I just like to be as natural as possible, and I like to know that my opponents are natural as well. Even if there's some that I know have had, I can absolutely guarantee that they were on performance-enhancing drugs. And that still never bothered me as far as an opponent. I just thought, well, my biggest thing is, if they are doing that, then maybe they feel like they can't do it on their own. And I see it as a mental weakness when people do use performance-enhancing drugs. And that's just my mental way of staying confident in myself. And I do think that it's good to, really regulate the performance-enhancing drugs, because it's just going to keep these fights very pure and true. We're going to get two people at their best, but their natural best. And I feel like a lot of people are going to respect that. And I think it's a good thing.
Well, Holly, we want to wish you all the best going into UFC 184. It is next Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. You can catch it live on pay-per-view. Holly Holm and Raquel Pennington. All the best throughout Fight Week, Holly, and thank you so much for chatting with us today. It was great.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Have fun in there.